vibe, but yet when it comes down to it, you'll be the first one to protect people with the Nine of Wands. But it's like these individuals were least expected. Like, you'll be a person chilling off somewheres or whatever, and yet you just come out of nowheres and protect someone with a Nine of Wands. But I'm going to tell you right now, this is how you're being perceived. This is the truth about who you are. And this right here is shifting everybody's perspective, and they're seeing what's going on here. Not meaning that you are a crazy person. I'm just saying, like, you're viewed upon your intimidation. What has people scared of you is you standing up for yourself versus all these individuals. This could be flying monkeys. Five of Swords reverse could be flying monkeys. That right there is an indication of narcissists. They call them flying monkeys, like people that just go based off of word of mouth. And it's basically like they monkey see, monkey do, etc. That right there is connected to narcissism. I don't know if some of y'all out there know about that, but you could go do your research on narcissism. They call it flying monkeys, etc. That's going to be about monkey see, monkey do, monkey see, monkey do. They're going to copy. They're going to go based off of misinformation. So what they're going to do is they're going to eventually get all kind of individuals involved with the Five of Swords reverse. And it may dissipate or it may escalate. I'm getting that some of this could have escalated with the Five of Swords reverse. But no matter how much this escalated, you still stood your ground. And this has a lot to do with somebody feeling a lack of your presence. And what I mean by these individuals being in this monkey see, monkey doing.
Okay, so he goes into saying that this could have something to do with somebody feeling a lack of your presence.
These were individuals that were loyal to this individual, that could have been friends with one of these individuals. They just didn't know how to take you leaving their life.
I have no idea who he's talking about. Look, if you're talking to me, if you're talking about me, I don't know who you're talking about.
When you left them in the cold, they didn't know how to handle that.
No idea.
Because they have a codependency issue that they needed to heal. Or they may be on the verge of healing. But this is not your fault. Some of you out there actually did the right thing. They could be congratulating you for doing the right thing. Because some of you out there are a very honest, trustworthy person. Very straightforward.
I don't know if he's talking about me or if he's talking about him. Okay, and this isn't just for people who don't know what's going on. This isn't just like a normal thing that I'm listening to, okay? These things that I'm listening to actually do have to do with a court case or a trial that I'm in that other people involved were given a gag order to not talk about. And so in order for people to be able to talk about the things that they're not supposed to talk about, apparently they make these YouTube videos that they pretend are tarot readings and it's basically like having somebody on the phone with you trying to tell you things and making it look like it's a tarot reading. Sometimes they're for me, sometimes they're not for me. Sometimes the person is making them for themselves so that they don't forget things. Sometimes they're just making them for me. Sometimes they're, like I said,
right here is
sometimes they're for other people. I have to actually watch a little ways through to see if they're even talking to me. You know what I mean? Sometimes they're talking to, obviously, somebody completely else. But in this situation, it kind of seems like this person might be talking to me, only maybe not at the same time because I don't know. And see, that's the thing is that for a lot of these people who are sending me messages, they have been told certain things and they know certain things, but they might not know 100%, even if they think that they do. And then like, there's people who think that they know me or think that there's some type of way to talk to me or whatever, or certain things that it's definitely not going to be okay to talk about. And they talk about them anyways, or, you know what I mean? Like it's a whole mixture of different people with different, with all different motivations and motivating factors as to, you know, whether or not they're talking to me, whether or not they're trying to be cruel, They could be dumping information into my lap that is incredibly cruel, that, you know what I mean, that they hope makes me want to go, you know what I mean, do something crazy, like, or it could be people feeding me disinformation. This dude especially, and I've had several of them jump on and act like, especially when I first had amnesia and I was running from these guys and stuff like that, like, you know, I had one of these people acted like they were madly in love with me, and it was actually a habit of mine that whenever I worked at jobs that I didn't like, that I would develop a crush on somebody in my environment, even if it was a fake crush, just to get me through. So I know that at my last job, like Pizza Hut, I developed a crush on somebody that I really didn't have a crush on, and I wouldn't have normally selected to have a crush on. I just selected like nice things about him and decided to have a pretend crush on him, and you know, it never went any further than that. I didn't, you know what I mean? I did at some point kind of actually get my feelings hurt because he was kind of flirting with this much cuter, smaller chick than me, and I'd never seen him flirt with anyone, and I was like, oh, you know what I mean? I was like, oh well, if he was gonna flirt with anyone, it obviously wouldn't be me, anyways. And I was also 10 years older than the guy, so I shouldn't have cared. But so anyways, I would make up these crushes on people because it would help me to get through what I was doing. Well, some of these people knew that, and so they deliberately put this dude in my face, which they thought would be real fucking funny. And this dude ends up being like my own like my half brother or my twin brother or some shit like that, who I've never fucking met before. Well, I guess I met him one time, maybe once or something like that, when my sister introduced me to him for a second, but I'm not even sure that that was the same person that I was introduced to. So as far as I know, I don't know if I ever met this fucking dude. But yeah, obviously was making videos that were intended for me at different times. I used to think that that was like super special code. There was at one point that I thought that like America was under attack and these people were having to talk in code, and I was like one of the only people who, I don't know, like there was a lot of different things going on. At one point I didn't know whether or not he was a private investigator. At different times I didn't know whether or not he was in the military or if he worked with law enforcement, or, you know what I mean, if he was some kind of government agent of some kind. You know, there's several different things. At one point I thought he might have been one of the state troopers that used to hang out in front of Michaela's house. Someone early on told me who he was, but I didn't understand. Like, they told me a little bit about who he was, but I didn't understand what they were saying. It was like too much. It was like all way too much for me to understand at the time. Like, I just didn't understand at the time, and people didn't want me to understand. And as far as I know, they still don't want me to understand. And this guy would have actually gone in on helping my kid be taken away from me, and a number of other things. And there was one, I mean, that wasn't the only time. And then there was like a time when my boss poisoned me, and right before she did, she was talking about this dude and stuff like that. And she was like, well, you watch that guy all the time or whatever. And like that in part was like, she sounded like she was mad that I was watching this dude on YouTube. And apparently my boss was a lesbian, and she had a crush on me while I was working for a 5-star burger joint in Taos, New Mexico. And so she'd invited me to live at her house with her. I slept on a bed downstairs. She helped me to buy a car. And I, you know, kept working and everything. But as soon as I told her, that I had enough money that I wanted to go get my own apartment because my kid had been taken by the system and I needed to get my kid back. I had a job, I had a car, I had a little bit of a support system with my workplace, and now I had enough money, a couple grand, and was going to go, you know, try to get an apartment in town or try to get into a place so that I could get my little boy back. And this all happened within the same couple month time frame of them taking my kid. So, I mean, I was right on top of trying to get him back. I'd gone and slept underneath a bridge in Taos so that I could make it to work every day. And then eventually my boss let me put a tent up in her yard, and then eventually transitioned me into the house. She would hand me a couple of capsules one night that she lied to me and said that they were antibiotics that she pulled out of some kind of fish tank cleaner bottle. So she basically, and I told her several times on several nights that I didn't want to take any of the medication that she was trying to give me. She just kept trying to push these capsules on me. And I'm pretty sure, like I said, that it was fucking fish tank cleaner capsules. Aquamax capsules or something like that. You're supposed to clean like 1,000-gallon fish tank or something like that. Yeah, so she kept pushing them on me, and like I looked down at them one night, and that's whenever she was talking about this dude, and she was like, she acted like she was jealous of him, that I was watching him on YouTube, and jealous of these tarot readers that I would watch, and she was making snarkily remarks about them. As she handed me a couple of these capsules, which was about the 100th time that she'd tried to push these capsules on me. And I looked down at those capsules, and I swear they turned into bullets in front of me. It was like the little yellow capsules in front of me shape-shifted. My brain was like, you know that those are a couple bullets. She's trying to get you to swallow bullets here, right? You do know that, right? And I was like, yes, I do know that. And I'd had a lot of warning that my boss was going to do this. Like from the spirit world, they'd been warning me, and they'd been warning me to leave and to run away and stuff like that. They told me that she was going to try to poison me. And that she was like deliberately only keeping candy in the house, in hopes that I would gain weight. But anyways, for the millionth time, she pushed those on me, and she was like, she tried to say, oh, it's just amoxicillin. It's not going to do anything to you. And it's going to kick this. I can't remember what I was sick with, but it was probably something that she did to me. You know what I mean? I was already messed up somehow. And she was like, take this, which somebody else did to me. I have a very similar story that they did to me in New York. They were like, take this. And I ended up puking blood for 20 solid hours. They're like, oh, it's just an Imodium. Oh, just take this because your stomach hurts. It's just an Imodium. And it was like the poison coffee scene off The Hateful Eight, only it went on for 20 solid hours. So yeah, I ended up like, it felt like she was like a mother standing over me, or like, it was like my boss, mother, landlady, who was insisting that I take these pills, and it was like, it felt like I couldn't say no. It felt like that if I were to say no, that she would know that I knew that she was part of a murder for hire campaign against me. I knew that I would survive if I took the medication, but I knew that it was going to hurt me really bad, and that it could actually cause permanent damage. And I just took them anyways to avoid the conflict that night of letting her know that I knew that she was trying to kill me. I know that might not make that much sense to you guys, and maybe in the long run it didn't really make sense, because she ended up hurting me so bad with that medication that I left from there and never, the one time that I did go back, I lingered around in the yard, and I just knew that if I went in the house to get my stuff, that this bitch was gonna do something to me. Well, I actually did go back that very night, right? So, she gives me those, and I go outside, and I'm on my phone, and I'm smoking a joint, and it's some new different weed that the dishwasher gave me. Well, I'm sitting out there smoking that joint, and all of a sudden, my hands start to tingle, and my feet start to tingle and itch, and I feel this coming on very strongly, and I realize that whatever that she has given me, that it's already begun to work and poison my body. And so I'm like, oh no, she really did poison me with something really bad. And I went and I go and I try to start throwing it up, and I'm out in the yard trying to throw it up. And I go and I'm not able to throw it up. It was super weird. So here I am, not able to throw whatever this is up. And which is what I thought in the first place. I was like, well, whatever it is, if it's really that bad, I'll just throw it up. No, it doesn't work like that, you guys. After they poison you, do not just think that you'll be able to just go throw it up and save yourself. It doesn't fucking work like that. Biggest, dumbest mistakes that I ever made was thinking that I would be able to just go get myself sick to get the poison out of my body afterwards. So in the very week that I had taken off work so that I could go get a place to get my kid back from these sickos who had done all this and literally stalked us across the nation, which I'm pretty sure that he might even be, a part of the group of people who stalked us across the nation, or if not, then before then. I mean, obviously, if someone is able to tell you what your ops are doing, like as a play-by-play, day-by-day, then, they're obviously in that group with your ops, or they could just be able to hack and watch them too, you know what I mean? But obviously, if the guy's working with a crowd of people to help get your kid taken away, he's obviously not one of the good guys. And so that leads me to, you would ask like, oh, well, why would you watch or listen to people who might be feeding you disinformation and who might be lying to you? Well, can you imagine just being in a box and never actually being given any information the entire time, and then all of a sudden the only time that information is given about your entire life? You know what I mean? Almost 40 years old, and the first time people are actually acknowledging me or trying to give me any information or disinformation is right now through these stupid videos. And I'm not necessarily going to call the video stupid, because it is a pretty intelligent way to get information across to people. But I definitely don't appreciate that they use the videos in the beginning just simply to be like, the whole reason that they came up with this video communication type thing was just to be deceptive and cruel. So that part really sucks, because this many people, when they first came on, when I first realized that people were talking to me, even though I knew that they could also be the bad guys, and just because you're a government agency or government agents doesn't mean that you're not bad guys. In fact, that makes you an even more dangerous bad guy, because now you've got, that kind of pull. Whoever was involved in what was happening against me, of course, those were the bad guys. Whether it was my own government or several different governments, or a practitioner in some other nation, or my own sister, or my own ex-boyfriend, those in my story, those people who were attacking me would be the bad guys, even if they worked for the government, even if it was a contract that they took. Those are still the bad guys in my story. They might think that it's all good, the people who, do the contract work and write the contracts up. And, there's people who want to make the excuse that they're saving the planet, saving their country, or saving lives or whatever by having certain people targeted. That's trash. But or that they're going to gain somebody's territory if they take them out, or that they'll get, the big trust fund that was left behind to them, or that they won't have to answer for all the illegal pornography that they made of them. I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that the feds even paid for plastic surgery for someone to pretend to be me as a porn star. So, I don't know. Apparently, I'm a porn star. Apparently, I have been a porno star, or that my face has been in pornography worldwide. Not only was internal camera access sold to everybody, and camera access monitoring over me in my own apartments and stuff. That was sold to people. Also, you know, I've listed off in other videos all the things that were divided up. I mean, but another thing that happens is with these little videos, it shows me that there are a lot of different people who have a lot of different ideas. I know that I was just talking about another subject and I didn't finish it, but moving on, even from the unfinished subject, sorry. Something that I've noticed about these little videos that they make is that some of them will seemingly deliberately give me the wrong information so that I'll jump out in public and correct it. So it seems to me like there's different groups of people who are trying to get a better idea of a situation, but at the same hand, it also seems like there are just people who are trying to throw in confusion and disinformation and misrepresent a situation to people who don't quite understand how all of this works. Like, this thing that they did with the videos is actually quite complicated, and it would piece by piece take me a while to explain. And then at the same time that these videos have been made for me over the course of the last couple of years, I ended up being hijacked and trafficked by the Biden administration. And like over half of the nation basically picking me up as I'm hitchhiking, or, inviting me over to their house to stay the night, or, me trying to find, places to take showers, or, passing through the country, being run across the country, aggressive stalking. Today, his channel is called Spiritual Elevation, but just because I said that in this video today, he will change it, even though I'm pretty sure that he changed the name of it like yesterday. And he quite frequently changes the name of it so that I guess he thinks that people won't be able to keep up with him, but all you have to do is type in basically any of the old account names that he used to use, that he used longer than a month, and it'll bring him up. And honestly, because he changes his name around like that, I've actually almost lost his channel a few times, which, I mean, wouldn't have necessarily been that big of a deal to me at this point, but back then it was a big deal because when I first started to watch these videos, he was the main person who I would watch and listen to, because he would seem to have a lot of information about what was going on. And anyways, it was probably stupid. Like, I knew that, I had just escaped from this situation, that I had just been run out of it, and it was probably deliberately, and that people were probably going to chase me and make a big game of it and stuff. So that was kind of like the beginning of him showing up. And there are several other ones, Ancient Emperor Tarot. There's a lot of different ones, at more than 10 of them. And, I used to really love all of them and listen to them, and that I actually believed in the beginning that they were kind of like trying to help. And it impacted me so much. Like, it just turned me into it. Like, even though I was super traumatized and terrified, like, even though they were being deceptive, with their encouragement, it did like turn a light on inside of me. Like, even though I knew that they were probably lying to me and that they were probably bad guys, I still used like the positive things that they were saying to try to encourage myself and to try to pick myself back up. And there's a story about King David in the Bible, that he went out with his army. I I think that they went to battle. Can't remember what it was that they were doing. They might have even been doing something goofy. I can't remember, but they can't remember the whole story. I'm so sorry, but he comes home with his troops, and all of their women and children have been taken. All of the women and children have been kidnapped and taken. And all of David's troops have turned against him. Everybody who was just, hoorah with David and whatever that they were just doing. I'm pretty sure that it was some kind of battle. I can't remember. All these people who were just, with David and cool with David, now they all wanted David to die. Like, bro, you took us away from here and all of our wives and kids were kidnapped while we were gone. You did this, David. You set this up. Did you sell all our wives and kids? You know what I mean? Like, they were ready to kill David. And David says that he had to go alone away from his troops, and he had to pray, and he had to ask God what to do. And it says that David had to encourage himself. There was no one else there, like, David, it's all right. We can do this. We can go and we can get these. We can go and we can rescue our people or anything. Like, nobody was there giving David encouragement, and David had to encourage himself. So at several points in my life, especially after they did some really cool things to me to take my kids to begin with, they took my kids and my apartment and so many things from me all at once. And I was sleeping in my Jeep in the yard of one of the witchy people, and was like afraid to go in and stuff like that, sleeping out in the Jeep. And I was just so miserable at how much that I'd lost, and how much that they'd been able to take from me, and how alone I was, and how dark everything was, and that no one was going to, you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't call and get help. There was no one I could call and get help from. There was just no help. And it seemed like no hope. And I had to encourage myself, in the darkness there by myself, alone, grieving over my baby. I had to encourage myself. Well, all of a sudden these people show up on my YouTube and they're telling me, like, hey, people are trying to give you AIDS. Don't sleep with anybody. Hey, people are trying to set you up to look like a prostitute. Hey, people said that you were a drug dealer. Hey, you might, the police are trafficking you, and you need to make sure that you don't use and that you don't let anyone mess with you and stuff. And so that was all quite a startling thing to all of a sudden come up on my YouTube feed. But I understood, as if someone were to investigate me, that they would see that I watched a lot of YouTube, and that I was watching these tarot videos. And so I guess that all of these people were hired, or they all came together and went in on making these YouTube videos. And at first, I guess that they were supposed to glamour me. But honestly, I will say that at first they were so encouraging that it began to absolutely change my life. It began to change my personality. I began to actually grow as a person. Like, really grow, like really flourish, and really my confidence levels shot through the roof. I really appreciated that people were talking to me, even though I knew that they had selected me for something terrible, and that was the only reason why they were talking to me. And then eventually they would do things like have me chased down, have my kids taken, and work with people to, deceive me so that, weird surgeries could be performed on me. And, I ended up having to run from organ harvesters a couple times and all kinds of stuff. So it's been really, really bad out here. And, I've become a lot more careful with the assassin YouTubers or whatever. And some of them have actually said some really, really nasty things. There was a couple of them worked together. They actually, Dude, they actually had me thinking that my dad was the director of the CIA. They honestly had me thinking that the director of the CIA was my dad and my grandpa at the same time, and that I was like an inbred kid. Like, they had me thinking that so hard that it was difficult. Like, as soon as I saw that my dad was my real dad on the My Heritage stuff, I was actually really upset. I was so upset. I practically had a nervous breakdown to see that my dad was really my dad, because it was like almost that they'd almost given me like an out on who my dad was. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, oh yeah, anybody but that guy. Well, they tried to tell me that my dad had accepted a $3 million offer for my head, and then after a while, they tried to tell me that my dad was that dude, and I was like, "Well, that's really weird." I had to actually get a DNA test, because like all of a sudden, it was like this explosion through tarot YouTube land, and it literally made all of the former tarot videos go away. Like, the way that tarot was done through YouTube is gone now. These guys basically ruined it, because they came on here and they started to glamour everybody, and they started to get everybody's attention into this trial that has, or you know what I mean, into this situation where they're telling people about, that there's, I guess that there was a movement, that there's been a movement of the firstborn, who, and this is what I heard, is that the director of the CIA and the FBI got in trouble for their dealings with the firstborn of certain families being given up as Luciferian tributes or as sacrifices, and that these directors were involved in that, Christopher Wray and William Burns. I'm just telling you guys what I've heard, okay? You can't really come after me for telling people what I've heard. The truth will come out, or it won't, or the truth could even be accessible online right now. And there's people who know those people personally. They can just go up and ask them personally. I don't care. I'm just telling you, this is my life. This is what I've heard. And then I would, of course, be the firstborn, according to the story from my father. Now, I tried to explain this to the person who was that I formerly called my stepdad, and he chose to laugh in my face about it, but there can be more than one firstborn. Now, let me explain this. A dude can get married to a chick. They can have a firstborn together, okay? A dude can get married to a chick who already has kids, and one of her kids is her firstborn, but he doesn't have any kids. He then has kids, and it becomes his firstborn, but her however many born, okay? And then you can have a firstborn son, and you can have a firstborn daughter. So you can have more than one firstborn within the same household. A man can have his firstborn from one woman, and then he can have his firstborn from another woman. There are several different, he can have his firstborn from 8 different women, but that's his firstborn of that woman. All right. So, but whenever it comes to the subject of, things being passed down, blessings and inheritances being passed down, that usually goes to the very firstborn, you know what I mean? And then it would go down the family line like that. But as far as what we consider firstborns, there's a lot of different firstborn possibilities. So, in knowing that some of these tarot readers and some of these people who are giving information, they're not all tarot readers either. There are different, it's gotten mixed up to where now there are prophetic speakers who are delivering the messages without the cards. They're just sitting there talking to me. There are, which I don't get to watch them all as much as I probably should, just because I kind of got used to watching the people that I was already watching, but I'm constantly trying to broaden my horizons. And and not just stay the same or whatever. And then there's also these people who do almost like these cartoon type things where they tell you things as the cartoon goes through. And I know that those people are specifically talking to me too, especially when they make it a point to bring up certain words and phrases that I used just the very day before, or like very close, like basically, if you were sitting with me and you were watching and you were here with me, you would be able to catch on. They could even begin to talk to you about things that you know about personally. And I think that mostly has to do, I mean, it could have to do with them being a part of the man. It could also be something that just hackers do. So it's like either way you look at it, it could be handfuls of criminals. It could be handfuls of government agents. It could be handfuls of criminal government agents. It could be, you know what I mean? So many number of different things. And everybody wants to act like that it's all a big secret. There's one of them who kind of lets us know that he used to be in law enforcement. He said that a couple different ways. I think that person also worked for one of the phone companies, and that's part of how he got involved in this stuff too, is because I'll just go ahead and let the cat out of the bag, but AT&T is not very protective of their customers, and AT&T does allow just about anybody to hack just about any of their customers. AT&T will let somebody else take full ownership of your account and never let you know about it. Like for the AT&T account that I have, somebody else is able to hack into that, change my password in it, and without me going back and asking for my password every time, I'm not able to actually even pay my bill. Or that's how it was up until they started doing, stopped having to make us like use a password to pay bills and stuff. Yeah, Sandy Reynolds. That was where I worked. I was a salad girl and a cook and a dishwasher at 5-Star Burger Joint when they first took my kid away this time around. And my boss poisoned me. After I was outside, like I said, I was all tingly and stuff. I came in and I was like, and she had also used my identity behind my back to purchase the store, that 5-Star Burger Joint or whatever. I heard her on the phone, like, and she was on the phone with some kind of like, one of those foundations or groups that helps you to get financial help or whatever for somebody who, anyway, she, I think, used my ID or my identity to do this because before I was hired by her, I actually got robbed of everything that I had. My social security card, my birth certificate, even my kids' social security cards and birth certificates were gone. Everything that I owned, every phone that I'd ever had, every picture that I'd ever had, it was all lost all at once because they worked with this dude named Swazo or some shit out in Taos to have me robbed like that. And I'm not actually sure that Swazo is still alive because I never actually saw him again. And even whenever I would go back to look at his camper for him, I never saw him or his car there ever again after that. And like he did say, like, before I went to work that weekend, because I had been staying in Swazo's camper, and that's where all my stuff was, in the trunk of his car and stuff. And he sat down with me and he said, promise me that after work today that you won't go anywhere else. He said, promise me that you'll come back here and that you'll be here this weekend. He was like, I can't tell you why, but I really need you to be here this weekend. And like I should have taken that as a very extreme hint and come back. But like the place where I slept in Swazo's camper was just a flat board. It was even worse than sleeping under the bridge because at least when I slept under the bridge, I had a sun visor that I slept on. I didn't even have my sun visor in Swazo's camper, and so I just slept on this solid wooden board. There was like this other weird guy who hung around the hotel over there, which is like the cop trafficking hotel that's called the sagebrush or something like that. And that dude like hit me up. He was like, I have a hotel room again if you want to come stay here or whatever. And I'd actually stayed in that dude's hotel room with him at least one night before. And of course he was like really retarded. You could tell that he was probably an informant of some kind. He did try to get me to lay down in bed with him, act all like, oh, well, we're adults, so we should be able to do that. I'm like, no, yeah, you're not going to use the adult thing to try to get me to lay down with you, dude. But anyways, that dude hit me up and he was like, hey, I've got the hotel room for the weekend. If you want to come stay here. And dude, like I was so exhausted, just day after day of working like that, sleeping on a wooden board and stuff. Like I was like, hell yeah. And I ended up going and staying at that dude's, hotel for the weekend, and he acted really weird and quiet the entire time. And then, afterwards I tried to go back to the camper and I tried to find Swazo after that. I never did see him again. One time I did see his car, being driven, but a woman was driving it, and Swazo was definitely not in the passenger seat. Like I never saw the dude again. So anyways, that would be about the time frame that either my cousin or my sister or someone related to me or one of the women stalking me, with the guys who were stalking me. Like one of those women, they were able to get my identity information. They were able to go into the hospital, I guess they're in Taos, where they were diagnosed with having AIDS and being pregnant. So like then all of a sudden these YouTubers were all like, are you pregnant? Because somebody might have used your identity to go in and, that they said that now it was on my record that I had AIDS and that I was pregnant. And they said that if I didn't go in and get an AIDS test to get it fixed, that somebody was going to give me medication that could end up hurting me. And like, so I was just like, well, whatever. I'm not going to feed into that too much. Like, people can't be that worried about whether or not I have AIDS or babies or anything like that. And I was like, eventually my moon time will start and they'll watch me go in and buy, you know what I mean, lady products. So, you know, but on the same hand, I was like super kind of like embarrassed, because for all I knew, there maybe was somebody, you know what I mean? Because at the time I thought that there could be people in law enforcement and like that they were actually trying to help me somehow. And, you know, that there could be somebody who really did like me. You know what I mean? Like how was I to fucking know? And then like I heard my boss in on the phone acting like she was like talking to one of the psychics that she would pay for. Dude, she was paying $400 and $500 to talk to these psychics. The psychic would only give her like 15, 30 minutes, an hour or whatever. And she was paying like $500 a pop for these readings. And I really don't think that she had it like that. But she would get on the phone with them and she would just play, dude. Like she would just pretend. She would act like she would, you could hear her up there talking about me and stuff like that. And she was just like, were we together in a past life and stuff like that. And you could tell she was really putting it on to these readers. And that's whenever I realized, I was like, Sandy is deliberately putting it on over the phone. She's deliberately putting it on at work, and she's acting to all of these people as though she is in a relationship with me. She's even acting like she's in a relationship with me while she's on the phone. It's like she's trying to keep it a secret, trying to keep it on the down low, but I did overhear some of her conversations, and it straight up sounded exactly like she was only making the phone calls so that she could try to confuse any federal agents that could be listening. And it really made me wonder, like, how much of these people's communication, both in text message and writing and verbally, could actually all just be a show. Not just to me, but to mislead more than me. I would run away from, when I knew that I was overdosing on something or had been poisoned, like it was pretty bad, you guys, after she poisoned me and stuff, I got in my car and I drove to the hospital. And I knew that it was a setup to get me to go into the hospital because I was afraid that they were going to give me the wrong medication or something like that after what I heard. So I stayed outside of the hospital, and I even let the lady at the front desk know, like, I'm suffering an allergic reaction right now. I'm really trying not to come in here, so I'm just going to sit outside. I kept trying to go throw up what my boss gave me. It was not throwing up at all. It was so bad, you guys. I was laying on the ground. I kept trying to, like, it was so bad. Like, I kept going and trying to hide where people couldn't really see me. I sat in my car. I mean, I looked in the mirror. I could see my eyes bloodshot. It looked like my brain wasn't getting enough oxygen. I felt like I was dying. I felt like I was not getting the air that I needed. I looked in the mirror and I wondered if I was going to watch myself die. Like, it was really bad. And I think that I was having a stroke. Super terrible. And I had just begun to, like, super recover from the amnesia that they gave me from making me a witness to the human sacrifices. And then they did that to me. So I was so messed up. I went ahead and I went home that night to my boss's house where I'd just been poisoned. I came in and I told her that I did not go into the hospital, that I was trying not to go to the hospital, that I was feeling better, and I just laid down and went to sleep. And I hoped to God that whenever I woke up that I would feel better than I did then. It felt so bad. It was so terrible. It was like the worst poisoning I've ever fucking had in my whole life. And it went on for hours, dude. And like as soon as I woke up and opened my eyes, I was like, I wonder if I died while I was asleep. I wondered if I died and come back to life. I still felt really, really bad. I still felt that feeling like I hadn't recovered from what happened to me, and that I didn't feel any better at all. And I just got up, I looked around, I grabbed a few things that it was like, if I never ever come back into this house, what will I need? And I went around and I grabbed those things. I wish that I'd have grabbed everything. I wish I'd have grabbed more, but I didn't know if she was going to come down and, like, catch me gathering things to leave, which I didn't want to deal with that. She stayed upstairs the entire time. Even though there was a bathroom right beside me, there was kind of a makeshift bathroom upstairs. She made sure that she used her makeshift bathroom the entire time. One of the sick things that she would do to me while I was living with her was she would, and other people would do this too, they would collect cat and dog urine, and they would begin to put it on my stuff. But she would drip it down through the ceiling to me while I was laying in bed. It was absolutely fucking disgusting. They actually sacrificed one of her cats while I was there. She had 5 cats when I first showed up. And then one day she only had 4, and they even left the blood and, like, some material that they'd wrapped the cat up with. They left it outside so that I would see that they sacrificed one of the cats. And then after that, she tried to say that she only had 4 cats the whole time. The people who were stalking me, Tim Strother and other people, which I don't know if it's my cousin, my sister, both of them, or whatever, they would be in the yard while I was in the house. Sometimes they would be in the house with me without my knowledge, like hiding. This is what they've done all over the place too. She had a brother that lived in a camper right next door to the house within the yard, like within the fenced in area. And they were staying in that camper with him. And then they would stay at the house. They would be in the house sometimes while I was gone. They would do things throughout the house to show me that they were there. Like one day they took all the kitty litter and stuff and spread the kitty litter all over the entire floor it was just ridiculous. And I think that was actually one of their ways of letting me know that, that she was about to do something really bad to me. It was like they were trying to make it like really obvious that they were there, but they were always kind of trying to make it obvious that they were there. Like at the time I was trying to make YouTube videos. That was the very beginning of me trying to become a YouTuber and trying to make YouTube videos. And so it was like, as soon as I would hit play on my stuff, they would start making all kinds of noise. They'd be out in that camper and they'd open it, close it, open it, close it. Creak, creak, creak. At one point, I watched them getting arrested. They were in a brown truck at the dollar store. But I would still end up seeing Tim on the side of the road. Like I would try to go to the domestic violence shelter. I would try to get in like the second or third time. Then they would tell me that you know what I mean? While I was at the door telling my story, they were like, yeah, you can definitely get in here. But then they'd go in and they would they would run my name in there, or they would say my name. And then they would say, no, she's not allowed in here, even though I'd never been in there and never been to any domestic violence shelter ever before. And whenever I was leaving that shelter that day, I did see Tim Struthers sitting on the side of the road. And I was just like, geez, I can't get into the shelter. And here's one of the people that I'm running from who is actively stalking me, you know, and that was after they took my kid. Like they'd already taken my kid and I to that shelter and acted like we couldn't get in there. And I needed help so badly that I went to that shelter afterwards, even after they took my kid, and was like, will you guys please let me in? You know what I mean? I'm being followed by these people and they're doing all this to me and stuff. And they were like, yeah. But then as soon as they found out my name, they had to tell me that I wasn't allowed in there because that first sheriff had shown up and told them not to let me in. Otherwise she would have gotten in trouble, because it was actually by law that she was supposed to get me and my kid into that domestic violence shelter when she picked us up. But she instead went in on this thing where she put us in a hotel and then had my kid taken away, which I'm pretty sure they got paid to do. Extra paid on the side, not just for their not just because that was their job. It's definitely not your job to pick up a woman and her 5-year-old, people who are victims of traffic. Like I literally told you that we were being held there in that place and you decided to bully us. And that lady bullied us all day, held us in her hot car with the heat on in June. It was really bad. Like my little 5-year-old was crying. It was obvious that she was bullying us. My 5-year-old got to experience what it's like to be bullied by an officer at 5 years old. She still works there. Just like Sandy Reynolds, who poisoned me, still works for a 5-star burger joint. All of these people who have done all of these heinous things to me, all of those people are still allowed to do whatever they want, work wherever they want. I woke up that morning and I drove all the way to Gunnison, Colorado, to the hospital. And the whole time I was driving, because of what she did, I was hallucinating. And I had so many people following me, and there were so many people that would get ready for me to show up at their hospitals beforehand just because I entered it on maps. People showed me that they were ready for me to show up everywhere that I would enter on maps. So I deliberately entered a bunch of different hospitals and acted like I was going to those hospitals, and then at the very last minute showed up at a Gunnison, Colorado hospital. Where I basically let them know that my boss had me take these pills and poisoned me and stuff like that. And they tried to play in my face and tell me that there was nothing in my system for me to have been poisoned with. And then they sent me out. Well, I then went back to her house for a second. I was about to walk in, but as soon as I stood in the yard, I just knew that if I walked into that house, that things were going to be really, really bad, and that she was going to try to attack me physically. And I did not know if she had a firearm in there, but I knew that if she did, she would have used it, because these people had just attempted murder basically. And I was still alive. And, that was going to be a problem. That's the millionth time that this has happened to me, because everybody just wants to botch, you know what I mean? They try and they botch it every single time. And instead of just being like, hey, this is cruel that we continue to do this to her, they just continue to do it. I ain't going out like that. I am super not going out like that. I'm just not going to just die that easy. You're going to have to try way harder than that if you want me to die. And I don't want you to try harder. I would really like for you guys to stop. I have a list of attempts that you guys have made against me longer than both of my arms. And I would really like for this crap to stop. Like, it's one thing if you guys can't pay me any of the money that you stole from me, but you could at least give me my child. And it's one thing if no one is going to get in trouble for any of the heinous crimes that they've committed against my children and I. Could you at least give me my kid back so that we can get out of here? Because I really don't want to live in this country anymore. I did not ever realize that this is basically a death trap. When they decide to ignore you, you're trapped. You're completely trapped here. You and your kids are trapped. And there's literally unless you leave the country, there's apparently no way out. Going through this has changed my perspective. Like, I used to be a very patriotic person. I have almost no patriotism at all because of them doing this to me. Now, you guys heard me saying, if you watched the video, you heard me saying some slightly good things about the possibility of aliens coming to help. In my life personally, they never swooped down out of the sky to help me. The bad guys who make the YouTube videos, they can try to say that the government would have put me on ice if it weren't for them doing these studies through Arrow on me and all these UAPs flying around in the sky or whatever. That's great. If extraterrestrials actually did anything to help me stay alive, I really appreciate that. But the fact is that they didn't necessarily swoop down. Like, they did hover over me at least once, but they didn't come down and beam me up. They didn't ask me if I wanted to ride with them. Nothing like that. So it's I can't really say that they rescued me because there's been several attempts on me, and several, and there were no spaceships or aliens who tried to show up to save my life. So, I can't really give them that much credit because as far as I'm concerned, they could have pulled me up on a ship and I wouldn't have had to go through any of this crap. As far as I'm concerned, they could pull me up on a ship and take me right over where my kids are and pull them up too, and we would not have to go through this trash. Like I said, I used to be patriotic. I even used to want to be an FBI agent or a CIA agent or whatever. When I was a little kid, I really did want to be an FBI agent. It was a really big deal to me. It might be kind of dorky, but the X-Files was a really big deal. Mulder and Scully were I loved them. I had the biggest crush on both of them. But as I got older, that's not the life that was chosen for me. Other people wanted me to be victimized and to live a much rougher life than, being an FBI agent. So that's what I've had to deal with. I have gotten to know myself a lot better, being forced to be alone and, not being able to actually trust anyone. And rather than pushing myself to be rough and hard, and, tough the way that I feel like people wanted me to be, or my environment or my situations kind of made me, I could be that rough, tough person, but I wanted to nurture a part of myself that I felt was stunted, which is the gentler aspect of myself, or the gentle person that I am, the calm, the feminine version of myself. I felt like that aspect of me had never been nurtured and developed properly, and that the only aspect of myself that was at the forefront was this, rough, tough gal who, was able to take on the world or whatever. But I knew that there was a chance in the future of me actually getting money, which changes everything for me. And with that money, I am, I was also given instruction as to what to do with that money. And that there may even be a chance in the future that I could get some kind of accolades of some kind. And so I imagined that in the future that I might not have to live such a rough and desperate and tough life. And so I began to actually nurture the more pampering self-care version of me. And that's something that I've been able to practice even as a homeless person sometimes, but then other times it's been completely impossible to practice as a homeless person. But as far as external self-care, but internal self-care and internal sensitivity, and the sensitivity that we have of ourselves is very, very important. And just the thought that I might not have to, maybe someday I'm not going to have to live rough and tough and mean, or there might be a break in between when I can actually rest and relax and just be the person who I am, or whatever. But there's a lot of people who really don't like that idea. There's a lot of people, they don't want to see me, wearing makeup and jewelry or having my hair cut. Not that I don't think I'd really go wild with makeup and jewelry or anything, but there's a lot of people who don't want to see me doing any better. They want me to be sleeping outside on the sidewalk, or they want me 6 feet under, or they not 6 feet under, but they've already divided me up. There's a lot of people who don't want me to be okay. And there's a lot of money that's been invested, money, time, and effort that's been invested in me not being okay, while I'm fighting all of that to try to stay okay. And I'm basically having to do that just on my own and with the help of God. There are occasionally people who seem like they want to help. There's occasionally somebody who hands me money, especially whenever I was homeless. That helped tremendously. Really, like, one of the most helpful things that anyone could do for a homeless person is hand them money. It's obviously something that they're lacking. And then I would deliberately stay as sober as possible, aside from smoking weed sometimes, just because I knew that I was going to have to beg and panhandle on the streets. And I wanted for people to see that there was someone who was completely sober and able-bodied and even slightly boring normal, who, wasn't a drug addict and was having to beg for money. That should mean something to society, that someone who is completely able-bodied is, that a female who's totally able-bodied and is not on drugs is having to beg for money on the streets. That should mean something to a community, but they don't get it yet. But yeah, anyways, I went to Gunnison, to the hospital. I came back after the hospital decided to lie and play in my face like every hospital does. They're basically, any hospital in the U.S. is going to be completely worthless to me. Medical martial law has been, placed over me and imposed on me since I was a teenager. So there is actually a diagnosis that they were supposed to inform me of while I was a teenager that has to do with cancer. And they kept that to themselves, hoping that I would die from it. So, like, there's different forms of medical martial law and different ways that they have affected my life. And they've basically made every hospital in the United States completely useless to me. I have even heard that they take extra blood, and they do. Every time I go into one of these hospitals, they take obviously extra blood and extra vials that they don't need. And then I have to hear through the internet about how one of my sisters or relatives got a hold of my blood that was just taken from the hospital where they just sent me. Yeah. And that was another thing, was that they'll have me attacked, poisoned, they'll have me hurt out here so that I'll go to the hospital. Then whenever I get to the hospital, these doctors and nurses are told to take extra blood. And then I have to hear through the grapevine on YouTube about how my own sister injected my blood, because apparently it takes my DNA to get into a security deposit box. And this woman is so desperate to get into a security deposit box that she has spent years trying to turn her blood into my blood, or my blood into hers, or something like that. That I guess whichever family member that this is has AIDS really bad, and that because they've all tried to give me AIDS my entire life and it hasn't caught, that they think that I have the cure for AIDS. So they were taking my blood and literally injecting it into their bloodstreams. Now, I'm not sure if they, went through some kind of process with it first. From the sounds of things, they didn't. Because this woman was able to tell me about how thick my blood is. This YouTuber, and I'm pretty sure that it was Mommy Wata who ended up saying this. She said that my blood was so thick that that the medical professionals had decided that I am not actually even human, that I have animal blood, alien blood, that it's not even physically human blood. And that these people were making the mistake of injecting my blood, which is quite coagulated, and that apparently whenever they're shooting my blood up, so fucking disgusting. I'm sorry, you guys. But whenever they're doing this, apparently it is coagulating in their veins and it's thickening up and it's causing them to clot really, really bad. They're basically explaining that my blood is very thick, that it clots. The entire time it's running through my vein, it's like coagulate. It's like that my body just has coagulated blood, that's just like how it is. That's just like how it normally is. And that when you introduce that to human blood, it apparently messes things up really bad and gets people really sick, which I love the sounds of. I love that. I love that so much. Like, it serves you right. And then some people are going to be like, well, why are you listening to these people if they're the bad guys? They're only going to hurt you, right? Well, in some ways, yeah, you are right about that. But in some ways also, you can also learn from your enemies. I mean, they end up giving a great deal of information that, you know what I mean? Even if it's a lie, then, you know what I mean? It can be corrected later. Generally, if they're lying or they're trying to be manipulative, I can usually feel that. And then other times when they just blatantly lie and misrepresent things, it's like they're just trying to get me to participate in their shit. By being like, no, that's not true. That's not how it went. You know what I mean? And like redefining the whole thing. Like, for the longest time, they could not get me to really reply or respond. Like, I sort of tried to write back to them on Facebook. Like, they would make the videos and then like I would write back on Facebook. Like, I had a really difficult time communicating at the time. Like, after they had made me witnesses to the women being slain by horses and stuff like that, like, I was really damaged after that. Like, it was really difficult. Like, I could still explain things and understand things and stuff like that, but they definitely made me a much more, at the time, like almost vulnerable of a person, but they still weren't going to be able to get me because it just wasn't in the cards. It just wasn't part of my fate. And which I do understand people getting mad about that, but I already told you. You know what I mean? If I already told you, and if you guys have studied, if the government and all these other people involved have studied this kind of thing, like psychic and prophetic gifts and stuff like that, and the person is telling you that they really are going to live to see a certain time frame, that they really were given instructions that they actually have to fulfill, you're not going to be able to take that person out. So it's really weird that so many people put so much effort into it because you guys probably already tested that sort of thing. And you know what I mean? And then there were other times that I heard that I was bait, that I was being used as live bait, to bait bad guys in. I believe that they were also lying to me then, which really sucks. They at one point told me that I was part of a secret sting operation, and that every single hand that I was passed through, every single one of those traffickers was going to be brought to justice. And then at the very end of all that, I mean, I went through there were so many different homes, so many different people, so many different situations, and there's still people in those homes and situations that need help and that need rescued and stuff. And after like every bit of that I was walking through, I really thought that every single person around me was going to be brought to justice. And that wasn't even true. So I went through all of that, and it's literally like, if the good guys were to have paid attention and were to have actually decided to hold all of those people accountable, they would literally have the biggest, most historical, most impressive case in the entire history of the United States, potentially even the entire world. But, people chose to fuck around and play and stuff instead and take sides with pedophiles and rapists and pornographers and murderers. So I've just been on my own out here while everybody is halfway being deceptive and halfway trying to help. I kind of get it a little bit because it's like people being paid or enticed or incited to attack somebody, and you know what I mean? They've literally made their whole lives out of attacking me, and my whole life has been made of being attacked. So it's like we've all lived our entire lives together, and you know what I mean? Like, sure, we're not allowed to talk to each other, but we're basically talking to each other. So it's like no, hitmen and women and other kinds of people who are giving information and disinformation. And then they're not just talking to me, they can also be talking to other people. So I have to be really careful while I'm watching the shit. And you know what I mean? But then at the same hand, I don't want them to be, it gets really complicated. I ended up not going back into Sandy's house. I can't remember exactly what I did, but I waited until I was supposed to get paid at the end of that week that I had taken off. I went and picked my paycheck up, and I fled Taos, and they followed me. And I picked up about $2,000, and it lasted me in hotels and gas and stuff like that for about 2 weeks. If I basically felt like that my insides were falling out because of the poison that she poisoned me with. And so whenever it was hot, it felt like my skin and my insides were melting. So I felt like I had to get these hotel rooms that I had to turn the air conditioner on and lay in bed and just lay really still. Because it felt like everything inside of my skull was coming out, like that it was all coming out, that my insides were falling through my skeleton. And that was when this thing happened with my chin here. And like it was almost like part of the inside of my jaw, and my, like, the insides of my skull, my innards began to sink down out of my skull, is what it seemed like. And like over the course of time, lots of exercise. It's been, I don't know, year and a half going on. I don't know, somewhere thereabouts since this happened. But I spent a lot of time homeless, walking across the U.S. in all different kinds of weather and everything else. I lost a lot of weight. I've gained a little bit of weight since I got back here. So you can really tell now. But whenever I was, a few pounds slimmer, you couldn't tell as bad, but you could still tell. But this is all from her poisoning me with whatever that was, and literally my face fell off. It sucked really, really bad. I tried not to be really like self-conscious about it. Like I tried not to be vain, but it did suck for my face to fall off. And I was worried that things could be worse than that. Like I wasn't able to drink coffee after that. Whatever she gave me, it messed my kidneys up so bad, dude. Like I remember I was in one of those hotels, one of the first hotels that I ended up in. It was actually in Gunnison, I think. And like I made coffee that morning, and that's something that I did. I smoked a lot of cigarettes, and I would drink coffee, and it was coffee and cigarettes every morning, all day long. That was what kept me going, because I have hypothyroidism. And I tried to take a few drinks of coffee that morning. I had about 30 minutes left before I had to check out, and I ended up on the floor. I ended up on the floor, completely incapable of getting up and getting ready to go. I had to wait there for an entire 30 minutes until my blood pressure dropped back down. And that's whenever I realized that whatever she'd done, that my kidneys were no longer able to process coffee because of it. So I lost one of the greatest joys of my whole life, which was coffee, because of what she did. I also lost my job, and she would follow me across the country. She and others would actually chase me as I fled Taos. They would chase me. I would drive up over Texas because I was avoiding my family and so many bad guys. And there was so much police corruption involved in my case in Texas that I was afraid to even enter the Texas boundaries. So I went up over Texas and I drove through that very horrible, hot, horrible panhandle of Oklahoma. I drove straight through that stretch, and then I drove down and I drove all the way to Alabama, and they followed me to Alabama where they had my car destroyed. And then they had the Gulf Coast Automotive, whatever, they had those people rip me off for my car and tell me that they were going to have the car impounded by the police if I didn't sell it to them for only $500. It was super horrible, and I had just paid $2,500 for it. Well, my boss actually bought it, and then I was supposed to be paying her for it. We put it in my name, and then she poisoned me and chased me across the country. So I really didn't care about what her payment plan was for it. She was also one of the people who put my name on a lease. And that was, I'm pretty sure, notarized and turned in and everything. So right after she put my name on the lease, she had me poisoned and then chased me across the country. And I'm pretty sure she's still working there. And this is somebody else that I've made reports about. I've made police reports about her. I even got so mad after, nobody doing anything and me still struggling to get my kid, and my kid living with pedophiles now and stuff like that. I have gotten pretty upset and written reviews, like anything that I can do to spark any kind of investigation that might actually help me. But it's not that I need an investigation sparked. You know what I mean? It's that, everybody, this is something that is being, has been systematically played out against me, which is really absolutely horrible. And I don't know why they would be getting arrested in the brown truck at the dollar store at the time, especially when everybody was working with corrupt cops and stuff. I don't quite get that part. It could be that there's good feds battling bad feds or you know what I mean? But I'm not really sure about that either. The whole situation, they didn't quite make it make sense, which led me to believe that I was basically just somebody that they were targeting. Oh, and that would have been all fine and dandy, but I was worried about the fate of my kids. And they were not ever able to show me that they were able to do anything right with any of the kids or make sure that the kids were okay, especially my youngest kid. They were never able to show me that he was okay this entire time, and he did end up with pedophiles. So, it's basically all just been an attack on me so that my kid could go live with these pedophiles. And they really went through a lot to try to make sure that my kid went to live with Chomos. So anyways, there's a few more details in that. I'm going to go ahead and upload this video, and I'll hopefully be able to give some more details as far as my perspective and everything goes a couple more times today. I may try to respond to some of these videos. I only very briefly was able to mention that if this dude's talking to me, if you're talking to me, I don't know who you're talking about, might miss me or whatever. No idea. It's literally been so long since I was actually with someone or dated someone that I wouldn't even know who you're talking about. All right.